Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Signal's Top 10, where we break down the top 10 stories of the week, many of which have gone underreported in the mainstream media. And helping me to do that this week are my colleagues here at the Daily Signal and the Heritage Foundation. First, senior contributor Jarrett Stepman, and our colleague at Heritage, the Director of Executive and Congressional Relations, Tommy Binion. All right, gentlemen, let's get started, shall we? Number one, restaurants across the country are boycotting the NFL.
Palmetto Restaurant and Ale House now changing the channel during NFL football games after recent protests during the national anthem.
Where my issue is the dissemination of the message.
David McCraw, the restaurant owner, says while he agrees with the message players are trying to send about racial injustice, he doesn't believe it belongs during nationally televised games. He says it's disrespectful.
I support the players to the point till they take the knee. And when they take the knee, then it's totally disrespect to our flag and to our country, and in my opinion, it's too far.
Come Sunday, these TVs at Vincenzo's Pizza in Saugus won't be playing the NFL. The restaurant posted the announcement on Facebook, reading, "We are 100% in favor of free speech and the right to peacefully protest. However, as a family-owned business, we do not believe that disrespect for the American flag or for our national anthem is the way to express those concerns."
So those are just the ones we know about. Jarrett, there could be more. What do you make of this restaurant boycott?
Yeah, I mean, I think this just reflects the general anger that we're seeing in this country based on these protests. I mean, ratings for the NFL are down, ticket sales are down. I think there are a lot of people that say, you know, why am I going to these games? Why am I watching? Some restaurants like Fat Tuesdays in Fairfax, Virginia, has said that they're going to boycott and no longer put these games on TV. I think there are a lot of fans that are responding. I know with this place, Fat Tuesdays, I know the National Sheriff's Association has said they will pay for officers to go eat at this place and patronize their business. So, you know, I think we're going to see a lot more of this. And I think this weekend really is kind of a test to see, well, how much NFL fans are really angry about the decisions of the league at this time.
Yeah, it will be, because I mean, it was one of these things, Tommy, where, you know, a lot of people already have season tickets or bought a lot of tickets, so they may still show up at the stadium this weekend because you've already spent your $200 a ticket or whatever it is. But will you be buying jerseys? Will you be buying memorabilia? Will you be turning in your direct TV package? I mean, I think it's kind of outside the stadium in ways where we're going to see some of the effect of all this.
That, and then long term, the brand of the NFL is damaged forever. It will never again be the great American institution that it was, and that's thanks to this stupid, disrespectful protest. Sure, the season tickets, they'll be fine for this year, but ratings are down already, and they're going to go down over time. The NFL will never be as popular again because of this protest.
Well, here's another protest related to the NFL, and this is dealing with a petition to remove Ray Lewis statue. He's a Baltimore Raven, former Baltimore Raven. That's already got 50,000 signatures. Take a look at this story.
Knelt on both knees, and he was linked with current Ravens players, but he says he wasn't protesting. Now, this all started last NFL season with 49ers Colin Kaepernick. He knelt after a rise in police brutality cases against minorities. First, though, he sat on the bench, then he knelt. Now, in a video on Twitter, Lewis condemned Kaepernick back then, saying he should leave his beliefs off of the field. Now, this season, most teams are getting on their knees with the same message as Kaepernick. The problem many Americans have with this is they believe it's disrespectful to the country and the military. Lewis said he supports the military and was instead, quote, praying amidst the chaos, end quote.
So Ray Lewis says he was just praying.
Well, okay, but he was doing it during the national anthem at a time where the kneeling protest is the hottest topic in the news, so I'm not buying it. He did it overseas and on two knees, so he sort of purposely made it a double whammy there. Here's a guy who was acquitted for murder by the justice system. He's now protesting. I'm going to go sign the petition. I don't think there ought to be a statue to Ray Lewis. I'm not sure we need to be erecting statues for sports figures unless it's for their accomplishments off the field. Let's take it down. Let's build a statue of George Washington in Baltimore. I like that guy.
I can agree with that. I like that. I like that idea. I think that's a better idea than the Ray Lewis statue. I think maybe somebody a little more well worth celebrating, even though I realize it's a sports stadium. You know, I think that there's certainly a lot of people that are very angry right now at figures like Ray Lewis who, has a little bit of a checkered past, and kneeling and saying that America is some kind of unjust, even though he says he's praying. In the part of this movie that says America is some kind of unjust country, this is a guy, people say, well, look at the justice system. Didn't you, get off for murder, some people are saying. So, I mean, I think it's kind of absurd to see Ray Lewis be a part of that, and I think fans have a right to be pretty angry.
Well, he's a former football player, but there's another former football player making news this week, and that is Peyton Manning. And the question is, will he potentially run for Senate? Let's take a look.
I mean, is it possible? I think it's possible. Is it likely? I don't know. I think if he got a huge rush of public inquiries, it'd probably push him away right now, because I think he's enjoying the private sector life that he's leading right now. But obviously, if he were to run, nobody in their right mind would consider running against him, I don't think.
So will Peyton Manning replace Bob Corker? Where are you betting, Jarrett?
I have to say, I think I have a positive feeling towards this one. I think he's going to do it. I know
you do.
I
really?
do. I think he's going to do it at some point. Maybe not now, but sometime in the future. I think Manning. He hasn't been overtly political. I mean, he's been a football player. You can sense that there's some politics, maybe some conservative politics, behind his kind of public persona. And hey, maybe he's following the path led by Jack Kemp, the famous Buffalo Bills quarterback, who, of course, became very political, kind of led the supply side revolution in the 1980s. Maybe Manning's just the next step in this whole kind of, athlete moving to politics. I kind of like it that way around rather than the other way around, where you see, athletes talking about politics all the time. Here's a guy he's going to run for office. He's going to go do it. He's going to actually go do it and actually stand on his public record. So, yeah, I could definitely see this thing working out.
The bigger question is whether his corporate endorsers will let them keep their slogans. Peyton Manning's on your side, or you could do, like better football player, better senator. I don't know. Some of those corporate slogans that he backs, I think, would make great Senate campaigns. So we'll see if they release the copyright for those.
He certainly has a lot of fans in Tennessee, I'll say that.
He does. He definitely does. And actually around the country,
yes.
But certainly Tennessee. All right, let's go to story number 7, and this dealing with MSNBC, who said that quoting the Declaration of Independence is very fundamentalist.
Roy Moore, where the phrase Christian conservative doesn't even begin to describe him, could very well be your next U.S. Senator. And if you don't understand just how freaked out some folks in the GOP and the White House are about what that means, then you don't know Roy Moore. First off, he doesn't appear to believe in the Constitution as it's written.
Our rights don't come from government. They don't come from a Bill of Rights. They come from Almighty God.
Now, that's just a taste of what are very fundamentalist views that have gotten him removed from office twice as Alabama's Chief Justice.
So, Tommy, Chuck Todd said that Roy Moore basically doesn't believe in the Constitution because he said our rights come from God.
Maybe Chuck Todd forgot to read the Declaration of Independence, where it says that our rights do come from God. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and the government is simply there to secure them. Of course, Roy Moore has it right, and of course, Chuck Todd has it wrong. He's on MSNBC, and Roy Moore is running for Senate in Alabama, so it stands to reason that an MSNBC host would know about those things we hold dear, but would claim to. Like that's the thing that gets me, is he claims to, I've got you now. I know what the Constitution says.
And I get you where you're coming from on he's like totally liberal, so you would expect him to get some things wrong, but Chuck Todd, I would have thought, knew better than this. This is like...
This is bad. This is real bad. This is, something you expect from, our kind of media elite to know what is not just a foundational principle of the United States.
Sure.
This is like the entire Enlightenment. The idea of God-given rights are something that we all share as a country stemming from the very beginning, that he doesn't even know that that's part of the debate and said, well, God-given rights, there's some crazy thing like they're from Mars or something, that this, Moore just created this thing out of whole cloth. I mean, I don't know if it's of all these media hosts believe this or don't know this, but I have to say it's pretty stunning ignorance. I mean, they kind of attack, a lot of people who support, Donald Trump as, poorly educated or whatnot. But here's a guy who just, frankly, opened his mouth on this and sounds like somebody who doesn't even know the basics of what this country's about.
And that, it would be okay to make a gaffe if they weren't so arrogant about it, and if their
Right.
fingers weren't always wagging, and if it wasn't always about how they're so much smarter than the rest of us.
But they're just in shock mode. First Donald Trump won, and now Roy Moore is most likely coming to Washington as senator. It really doesn't get any better than this. All right, let's go to number 6. Target is raising the minimum wage to $11 an hour. Check it out.
Mid-morning, Target announces it's increasing its minimum wage. Minneapolis-based retailer says all hourly team members nationwide will get $11 an hour starting this October. And Target says it's committed to paying a $15 an hour minimum wage. Pretty quickly, by the end of 2020, they'll be there. Target says the investment will let them continue to recruit and retain strong team members who will offer quality service to shoppers.
So they're raising it to $11 now, but by 2020, they're saying they're going to take it up, I think, to $15. What do you make of Target's move?
Yeah, I know. I think there are a lot of people that are, in the pro minimum wage crowd that say, well, see, this proves that minimum wage is a good thing. I'd say, this is a private company that decided that they wanted to pay their employees more. I know, very famously, Henry Ford decided to pay his employees more at Ford Motor Company. And the reason he did that is because he didn't want people leaving to go to other companies. He wanted to pay them a little better, decided that in his business, this made sense. The problem is when cities and counties, they decide to create arbitrary levels, we see a lot of negative effects, like what happened in Seattle when they raised their minimum wage. A lot of low-income workers, they couldn't get jobs. They lost their jobs. There was even a dramatic study that showed that restaurants in the area had poorer health standards probably because they didn't have as many people working at these restaurants anymore. So there are all kinds of unintended consequences of enforced minimum wage laws. But I think it's perfectly fine if a company decides, hey, we're going to pay our employees a little more. That's a good thing.
Yeah. What do you make of it, Tom?
Welcome to President Trump's economy. A rising tide lifts all boats. The markets are through the roof. All the fundamentals in the economy are excellent right now, way better than they were under President Obama. And the result is private companies like Target can choose to pay their employees more so that they have a more attractive benefit, so that better people will come work there.
They compete for the better workers,
This is what we want to have happen. But to make no mistake, there will be those on the left who choose to say, see, this is why we need a minimum wage. But as a matter of fact, see, this is why we don't need a minimum wage.
See, it can be done without government forcing you to do it.
Apparently, it can be done. It is being done. And I'm glad that Target has the funds to do it, and I don't think they would have in a different economy with a different administration.
All right, let's go to story number 5, and this is definitely one of those that I think was certainly underreported by the mainstream media. It was a Tennessee shooting where several people were hurt. One woman was killed. Watch this.
A woman died and 6 others were shot when a gunman opened fire on churchgoers in Tennessee. And a church usher is being credited for taking the attacker down.
During the confrontation, the church usher was pistol whipped. There was a significant struggle between the two. During the struggle, the gunman shot himself, probably not intentionally, in the left pectoral muscle.
Metro Nashville police say 25-year-old Emmanuel Kadega Sampson was wearing a ski mask when he pulled into the parking lot of Burnett Chapel Church of Christ and started shooting at people as Sunday morning services were letting out.
So, Tommy, at a time when, basically anything like this happens, you normally get wall-to-wall coverage. I know there's been a lot going on in Washington, but oftentimes they take this over a battle over tax reform, but you really didn't see a lot of coverage of this story.
No, it was totally drowned out by the kneeling.
That's true, too.
I don't know why the media chose not to cover this. In preparing for this show, I couldn't come up with a good reason why the other shootings and not this one. Here's what I do know. I think we let, in a passive way, we let the ratings for the big cable news companies drive our conversations and the things we talk about as a nation. I think we miss out because of that. This happened to Puerto Rico, I think, a little bit as well. Puerto Rico didn't receive near the amount of coverage as the places where Harvey and Irma struck. And for weeks, we've had 3 million Americans out of power, and this is another tragedy that didn't get coverage. So I'm sure it has something to do with ratings. I couldn't see between the lines on this one, but I know that it's sad that this is what drives us.
Well, and I think, you could say you know, there's bad things that happen every day all over the country, right? I think many of the concerns that some people had is like, had this been reversed in terms of races, a white shooter had gone into a black church, MSNBC probably would have broken in.
Yeah, and you know, I think it also shows you how much the media can drive what are the narratives in this country. I mean, just based on what they choose to cover or not cover. I mean, this was a big event like, I mean, any other shooting, yet it disappeared in the news cycle. I think it shows that, well, look, I mean, if all the media has a left-wing slant or a right-wing slant, things are going to be portrayed to the public in one way or another. And I think this very much shows this. Look, there's a lot of information in this world. You know, there's only a few media companies that are saying, hey, this or that. They're driving what we're all seeing.
Yeah. Which is why you can't just watch one source if you really want to have a bigger picture of what's going on. Except for the Daily Signal, because we cover it all. All right, number 4. Hugh Hefner died this week at the age of 91, but his life is being cheered on by many on the left. Take a look at this.
He was one of the original American playboys, a magazine tycoon who helped spark a revolution, one that challenged the nation's views on sexuality.
I have celebrated the romantic connection between the sexes, and that's part of what Playboy is all about.
Now, regardless of what you think of Hugh Hefner, interestingly, many of the folks that are saying, oh, what a great man, even though, you know, you could say he really introduced pornography big way into this country and glamorized it. Some of those same folks go after President Trump saying he's anti-feminist, he says bad things about women. I mean, what?
Is there hypocrisy on the left?
I know, it's shocking.
I am surprised by that. I didn't know that until this story. This is the week where we had to get lectured by former First Lady Michelle Obama, former First Lady Hillary Clinton about women helping women. And I think it was First Lady Michelle Obama said there's a special place.
Voice. It was Voice. The voice in women that tells them they all must vote for Hillary Clinton.
And so it's okay for women to be objectified as they were by Hugh Hefner, but it's not okay for women to vote for President Trump, which is what the narrative of the left was this week, was that there's some problem with the women who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. And it is example number 1,200,685 of hypocrisy on the left.
Yeah, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, and you know, it kind of shows too. It's interesting because Hefner was at one time a hero of the left, and then not a hero, and then it like he goes back and forth. You know, now they're kind of saying, well, maybe he objectified women, but well, wasn't he great for the sexual revolution? So
there were great articles in Playboy.
Right, there were great articles in Playboy. You know, I was reading those. So.
Yeah. Well, he died this week at the ripe old age of 91. All right, number 3 story this week. Some of you may have seen this online. We had a West Point grad who was using his Twitter feed and the other likes to promote communism, basically. Jared, how does this guy get away with this?
Well, I mean, I don't think he will get away with this. I mean, there's definitely some issues with something called the Hatch Act, which prevents soldiers in uniform from advocating on political causes. So I assume that he's going to get in big trouble with his superiors after these little stunts. And I think, unfortunately, this is part of just what's become kind of communism chic lately. I mean, there's a lot of, of course, the New York Times has been running a opinion section, touting how great communism was under, you know, this Maoist Chinese or, you know, under the Soviet Union, which is pretty wild stuff. But I think there's a little bit of historical ignorance about what communism really was. And obviously amongst younger Americans, they don't really remember the times of the Cold War and how things were. So, you know, obviously, you know, this guy, he kind of did some ridiculous things in touting communist ideals and putting them on social media, which of course disappeared very quickly after this came out. You know, I think he's in a lot of trouble right now. He's in a lot of heat, and it's, you know, it's kind of sad to see this in our military.
It is, and it makes you wonder, what are they teaching at West Point that somebody like him would, one, want to go there, and two, not understand what communism is. Well, it makes no sense.
You get a hashtag there, right? Veterans for Kaepernick.
Well, right.
This is all the left's war against America swirled together, right? They embrace communism. The Che Guevara T-shirt there is one of their symbols, and they have mixed all of this anti-American sentiment together, and they're trying to romanticize it. And you know, here's a guy trying to romanticize it. People wonder why we're divided. It's because the left is waging a war against America. It's not because we have disagreements about which way to go. It's because, you know, the left is upset about the direction we're going in and have been going in, and they disagree about the greatness of America. That's where the divide is.
Well, and many people believe, going to story number 2, that the left was waging war against actor Tim Allen. Take a look.
You know what? I always wanted LMS, Last Man Standing, to be like Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker pushed boundaries.
It was like that.
He pushed boundaries. And Carroll O'Connor was not that guy at all. And I'm a version of that guy.
Yeah.
But I said, there's nothing more dangerous to me, especially in this climate, than a funny, likable conservative. That was the most dangerous thing. That because he was mitigated on the show by a family of all women that had different opinions. Yeah. But the guy was a likable guy and really was a principled guy just about work and ethics and all this stuff. I think there's nothing more dangerous right now than a likable conservative.
Now, of course, Hollywood and the network executives say they didn't get rid of the show because of his conservative beliefs, but it sounds like he really thinks that was the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And a likable conservative is a dangerous thing.
That's why we don't let you out of the building, Tommy. You're too dangerous.
If he were a liberal, his politics would not have anything to do with his career. Yeah. If you are a conservative in Hollywood, it has everything to do with your career, and that's the truth. I feel bad for Tim Allen. He's a rich guy, happy guy, had a great life, but it's a real shame that his politics are maligned by the industry that he works in, and I'll say it has a chilling effect.
Right. Well, and the character that he portrayed. I mean, I think part of his thing was the fact, look, Hollywood's fine to have, Archie Bunker be the conservative and have that sitcom on TV. And look, I thought it was funny, okay? But, I mean, he's the kind of stereotype of a conservative that people liked. They didn't like the stereotype of this guy because he was a kind of a likable guy on camera as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of times conservatives are dehumanized in a lot of these shows. They're turned into caricatures of what they really are. And here was a character that was actually something that maybe seems like, hey, this looks like a likable guy. I could talk to this guy in real life. He seems like a normal person. Unfortunately, that just creates more of these. Look, I grew up in one of these left-wing bubbles in the Bay Area. If the only contact you have with conservatives is, these ridiculous characters you see on TV who are not representative of regular people, actual human beings, well, of course you're going to have these crazy ideas about them. And I think what Alan was saying is very much correct, is that, hey, here was one time where we had a character that looked like a conservative, who talked like one, and seemed like a normal guy, and that guy was too dangerous to put on TV. They can't allow this. It's incredible.
We're a conservative country. And if they want good ratings, they're going to
Which
have
his
to
show had.
I could just see these Hollywood decision makers twisting and turning over, whether or not to promote the conservative characters or malign them as they have, because I'm sure that it was a popular show and it made money.
Well, speaking of ratings, let's end our show where we began it, talking about the NFL. And what we're going to see here is something I've wanted to do as a Dallas Cowboy fan my whole life. You have a veteran burning his Pittsburgh Steelers jersey in protest. Take a look.
One Army vet is truly fired up about the NFL players kneeling during the national anthem last Sunday. That is Arvin Gibbs burning his Steelers jacket and hat after witnessing his team protesting over the weekend.
And believe it or not, he is not alone. Upset fans across the country now are following his lead by setting their NFL merchandise on fire in a protest of their own. Joining us now is veteran Arvin Gibbs. Arvin, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your service. Why did you do that? Why did you burn your merchandise?
Well, thank you. The primary reason that I did it the first time was they ruined one of America's favorite Sunday afternoon pastimes.
Of course, that was just one example, Jared. I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter and Facebook, people burning their Green Bay Packers stuff. Yes. I mean, all sorts of. We were just talking. I have a Cowboys jersey. I haven't burned it yet. I'm holding on, hoping they come back to their senses, but we'll see. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think this represents, of course, a lot of sentiment in this country, and I say to people, channel this into something tangible. I mean, the NFL as a business rakes in billions of dollars in taxpayer money. I mean, there's one study that came out that said since in the last 2 decades they've raked in $7 billion. Okay, so in 2016, this is a league that made in revenue $16 billion. Do they need to make billions of dollars off of average Americans, the guys who bought these jerseys, to fund the stadiums of millionaires and billionaires who can't even be bothered to stand up for the national anthem, a uniting thing, that's something that should unite all Americans? That these owners who have allowed disrespect of the American flag are getting incredible amounts of money in taxpayer support is something I think a lot of Americans are going to start to look at. Beyond just, burning the uniform or burning uniforms and the jerseys and all that stuff, so you'll say, why am I paying for this? Why these guys seem to be making a lot of money, more than the average guy who shows up to the games and buys all the stuff. We need to take another look at this.
Yeah, so a year ago, Colin Kaepernick chose the wrong thing to protest. He decided to protest the symbols that are the symbols of the things we love about our country. And then a year later, because of the dizzying talking points of the left and the media, a huge portion of the NFL decided it was a good idea to go along with them, and it was a stupid, bad idea. They've made a lot of enemies.
President Trump stirred the pot.
Sure,
because he called them out.
Yeah,
he called them out.
He called them out. But now I'm not sure that they can ever get this back. These images of these players kneeling, the image of Ray Lewis on 2 knees in London, they're never going to go away. This is a pivotal time for the NFL, and they need to get it right this weekend, or it's going to be gone.
Well, the first couple games I've seen this past week, the Green Bay Packers, they were all standing, hands across the heart. So we'll see if others come along as well. Thank you, gentlemen, as always, and thank you all out there for joining us as well. We're going to leave you this week on a high note that came out of Washington. Representative Steve Scalise was back in D.C. He made a great entrance and speech, I have to say, with his colleagues as he returned to the House floor for the first time since that fateful shooting at the baseball game several months ago. Here's Steve Scalise coming in. Thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody.